Live from Zeppo's, alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
Well, I am not Matt Chazanow. I'm Derek Dice. Matt will be here momentarily. He just wrapped up the post-game show for the Cougs basketball team as they fell to Omaha at Beasley Coliseum today. It's actually been a long time since I've been live at Zeppo's. The last time I was doing the Ernie Kent show. There's definitely a lot more faces looking back at me from in the restaurant here than there was back in those days. Cougs gearing up for a big one this Saturday night against the Oregon State Beavers. Both teams 5-5 on the season. Both teams trying to become bowl eligible. It'll be the 104th meeting between WSU and OSU in a series that dates all the way back to 1903. WSU leads it 53-47-3 all time. Again, a 6 o'clock tip at Martin Stadium. Jed Collins and I will have your pregame with the Coors Light Cougar Tailgate Show starting at 4 p.m. Now, of course, there's a lot more like it on Saturday at Martin Stadium. The Cougs got back on the winning track with that 49-22 win over the Stanford Cardinal. Fourth straight win over Stanford in the series. First time the Cougs have done that against Stanford since winning 8 straight, dating back to 1957 to 1964 seasons. A lot of great individual performances for the Crimson and Gray on Saturday. How about Anthony Gordon, Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year for the third time this season. That's right. 44 of 60 for the senior quarterback, 520 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also set the WSU all-time single-season record with his 39th touchdown pass, breaking the mark set by Gardner Minshew last year and Luke Falk before him. So 2 more games left for Anthony Gordon to go on to extend that WSU record and also try to break the all-time Pac-12 record of 43 set by Jake Browning and Jared Goff, who now plays for the Los Angeles Rams. Max Borghi, another 100-yard game, 15 carries, 111 yards for Max and a touchdown, 1 rushing, 1 receiving for him. Aesop Winston, a team-high 11 receptions for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Brandon Arconato, how about this? 6 100-yard receiving games on the season now. 9 receptions for $148 and a touchdown. He's getting 1 away from tying Mike Levenseller, the former Coug player and coach, for most 100-yard receiving games in a season in the Pac-12. Levy had 7 back in the day. Another great individual performance. How about Travell Harris? 210 total yards, 58 receiving, 152 in kick returns. He had that big 83-yarder after Stanford had closed the gap to just 3. That put the Cougs back up 10, 2 plays later, and they were on their way from there. On the defensive side, Jehad Woods, 9 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 interception. He went over the century mark in tackles for the season. Cougs racked up 624 yards of total offense. They also scored on 9 of their 10 possessions, not including the kneel downs at the end of the game. Did not punt. Oscar Dragicevic was not needed for the Cougs in this one. And they're also now 17-2 at Martin Stadium now over the last 3 seasons. Pretty good mark for the Cougs on their home field. All right, we've got some highlights of that win over Stanford. We're back with Coach Leach. Coming up right after this, this is Washington State football from Learfield IMG College.
Cougs Cardinals.
Snap back to the right hip of Gordon. 2nd and 6 at the 16. Gordon fires a dart. Complete. Tay Martin inside the pylon. Touchdown. A 16-yard pickup. Martin beats Ebo. And it's 13. Make it 12-0 pending the extra point. Snap back. Gordon tosses it over the middle and between 3 targets. It's a touchdown. A 15-yard hookup to Aesop Winston. It's 19-0 Washington State leads.
Throughout the week is kind of what set the stage for the whole outcome of this game. We brought it all week during practice, and we preached little things throughout the week.
Turnbull here for Harris, taken at the 7. Stutter step at the 15. Speeds to the 20. Has blocking at the 30. So fast at the 40, he could break at 50. Travell Harris, 1 man to beat. Far sideline 30. Tight roping sideline. Travell is brought down inside the 5. He's right on the doorstep. Snap back from the 5. Gordon back to the left corner. Touchdown. Brandon Arconato over the shoulder, a 5-yarder. And after the Travell Harris return, it takes 2 plays. And the Cougars answer back. It's 31-22. Snap back to Mills. Drops back. Rolls out left. He's sacked. Jehad Woods. Back-to-back linebacker stops for loss. Mills has Green in front of him. Rolls out left. Throws it incomplete. It's picked off. Skylar Thomas pulls it down out of the sky. high. Snapback Mills, dump off over the middle. It's picked off. Jehad Woods, a leaping interception.
Feels good, man. All the work we put in, it feels great. But now we got to enjoy the night, and then tomorrow we're on to the next one.
Borghi motions out of the back. Snapback Gordon from the 2. Feeds Borghi. Speeds to the pylon. Somersaults in. Football first touchdown. And that is the new single-season passing touchdown record. 39 on the year for Anthony Gordon, and a 41-22 Cougar lead with 7:09 to play.
You know, he really had a good night. There are a few plays he'd like back, but I think that, he's playing as good as anybody in the country right now.
First and goal at the 4. Snapback Gordon, handoff here to Borghi with blocking there from Martin. He has a clear path and a touchdown. And 100-plus yards rushing, 15 carries, 111 yards, and a touch on the ground for Max Borghi. It's 48-22 Cougs, a cherry on top, a crimson cherry. Washington State has beaten Stanford 4 straight years. A 49-22 convincing victory. The Cougars are back onto the winning side of things, and back here at home, they're 2-5 in the pack and 5-5 overall.
More from Zappos after this on the Washington State Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Bookie call-in line at 866-COOG-TALK, 1-866-268-4825. Live from Zappos alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
All right, Derek Dice here at Zappos, pinch hitting for Chaz. We have word that Coach Leach is on the premises. He's a very important person, so he's finishing up a phone call, and he'll be in as soon as he is done with that. We'll get him on the headset and ask him about the win over Stanford and look ahead to the game at Oregon State and everything else. We mentioned a couple assaults on record books. Anthony Gordon now owns the WSU single-season record for passing touchdowns with 39. He needs 5 TDs to break the Pac-12 single-season record. We mentioned it's shared with 43 by Jared Goff of Cal back in 2015, and then Jake Browning of the Huskies the following year, 2016. Gordon's 4,314 passing yards, 5th most in WSU single-season history. 10th most in Pac-12 single-season history. He needs 466 yards, again, in 2 games to break Gardner Minshew's WSU and Pac-12 records of 4,779 set last season. His 4,348 yards of total offense, 5th most in WSU single-season history. And also, we mentioned Brandon Arconato, the 6 100-yard receiving games. That's tied for 2nd most in WSU single-season history, 1 away from tying Mike Levenseller's 1976 record of 7. So pretty impressive stuff, especially when you consider Brandon Arconato missed basically 2.5 games already. So he's played 7 complete games. He's gone over 100 yards in 6 of those 7. WSU, how about the offensive line? They've allowed only 12 sacks so far this season on 548 dropbacks. That is the fewest in the Pac-12 yet, and it's tied for 11th fewest in the country. So basically, 1 out of every 46 times a Cougar quarterback gets sacked is when he drops back for a pass is when he gets sacked. So pretty impressive stuff. The coach is sitting down right now, and he is putting on the headsets. Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you very much. Hey, let's talk about this win over Stanford. The offense was outstanding. Again, if you don't count kneel downs at the end of the game, we scored on 9 out of 10 possessions, 6 touchdowns, 3 field goals, the 1 turnover on the goal line, and never punted. I mean, that was one of the more efficient offensive performances, certainly this year and maybe in your tenure at WSU.
Yeah, try not to punt. That's the thing.
We'll talk about Gordo's performance of that one. 44 of 60, 520 yards and 5 touchdowns. You know, besides trying to squeeze in that ball again that was intercepted on the goal line, he was pretty outstanding in this one.
Yeah, no, I thought he played pretty well, you know, kind of forced that one in the end zone. But other than that, I thought and then the other thing is, you know, there was a point there where he tried to make a little too much happen, but that's been one of his the strong things about Gordon is he's able to regroup and get himself back on track.
For sure, yeah, he had squeezed that one into to Aesop earlier in the game, tried to do it again, and that's the one that ended up getting picked. How about the performance of Max Borghi on Saturday as well, Coach? 15 carries, 111 yards, a touchdown, also had 8 receptions for 34 more yards and a receiving touchdown. The sophomore has been outstanding for you all year.
Yeah, Max does a good job with the ball in his hands. He's real versatile on the ground and in the air. The other thing is Max, you never know when he's going to get an explosive because he, you know, he makes a guy miss and then all of a sudden can get a bunch of it.
And his balance seems to be impeccable, right? I mean, he's able to take a bump maybe coming through the line and somehow stay on his feet and pick up that extra yardage.
He's got really good balance, plays about 2 feet off the ground, very tough to tackle. And then the other thing is you know, has a certain amount of velocity when he hits those guys and then on top of that, he's a fast guy.
As you were sitting down, I was mentioning the offensive line. They've only allowed 12 sacks and 548 dropbacks. You know, the offensive linemen, they don't get a lot of love. You used to coach offensive linemen back in the day, but this outstanding group has been really good for you all season.
Yeah, they deserve a lot of credit for, you know, I think getting better over the season. And then also, you know, Gordon does a good job of aiding them, but it all starts with those offensive linemen, and that's the other thing is, you know, if they don't put 2 bad plays in a row, we have a chance to move it offensively pretty well.
Yeah, no doubt. Aesop Winston, Brandon Arconato, both outstanding in this one. They combined for 20 catches, 255 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. And these guys have been consistent like this for you all season, those 2.
Yeah, and we've done a pretty good job of distributing the ball to a lot of different players, to a lot of guys, and getting a lot of contributions offensively out of the receiving core. And then some of those young guys are getting even better, and some of the seniors are, you know, starting to play their best football.
You know, and Tay Martin had a few quiet games in a row for you, but, you know, lining up on the opposite side from guys like Aesop and Dez. But he had 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown as well. And, you know, he's a guy, when he's involved and dialed in, it kind of can take that offense to another level.
Well, when Tay's precise, he's a real explosive guy, too. He can get some balls that other guys can't get. And then the other thing is once he turns it upfield, he's really good with the ball in his hands, and really one of our better receivers with the ball in their hands.
I thought one of the biggest plays in the game, Coach, was after Stanford had scored in the third quarter, they cut the lead to 3. It was 25-22. They kick off, and Travell Harris, who it seems like he'd been ready to break one on a kickoff for, maybe 4 or 5 games now. It finally happened. 83 yards up the sideline. You're in the end zone 2 plays later to go back up 10. That was a real momentum-changing play, wasn't it?
Yes, and he almost broke the one before that. Almost broke one of them before. And then, Travell, in my mind, Travell's owed about another 150 yards as far as returns. There's some extenuating circumstances, some of which I can't talk about, that have prevented that. But
the Cal game.
But with that said, Travell does a pretty good job back there and is explosive and has been on the brink.
He is so shifty, right, and able to kind of stop and start so fast. But that's exactly the kind of thing you look for in a kick returner, isn't it?
Good stop and start. He's done a better job reading the blocks. The more he's played there, the more efficient he's gotten, and, wastes less steps. And then, because some of those guys, you got fast guys and they'll waste steps. And then, if you waste a step figuring out where you're going, or those dance guys, I hate the guys that go up there and there's a defender and they want to dance, and it doesn't matter how fast you are if you're going to just run in place. Then you're just a slow guy. Might as well have a slow guy there. And then, but when he doesn't waste any steps, he's real fast. And, Calvin Jackson is a great no wasted steps guy.
Sure. How would you assess the defense on Saturday, Coach? Obviously gave up a lot of yards, 500 plus, to Stanford, but only 22 points. So it was kind of a bend, don't break. And when they had the opportunity to create some turnovers, they did it in the second half.
I thought we were good in the red zone. We gave up too many explosives. Early on, we let them off the hook on third down more than we'd like. Kind of locked that down, I thought, the second half.
And there was a switch made in the secondary. George Hicks started the game at the corner opposite Marcus Strong. Derek Langford finished it there. He had 4 tackles, 2 pass breakups. I thought he competed hard out there.
Derek's kind of come out of his shell, and I think has really played well the last 2 weeks and had 2 good weeks of practice. Seems pretty dialed in, and I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be a really good player here. It's good to see him, starting to get his momentum going now. Yeah,
he's one of those JC guys that you brought in this recruiting class. And sometimes with those junior college guys, Coach, it can take a while, right, to get acclimated, get comfortable to where you're out there, and then you can actually rely on them. Sometimes it takes till the second half of the season.
Yeah, usually it takes a year, but I think Derek's going to get better and better.
Jehad Woods, 9 tackles in this one, a sack, an interception. He was kind of all over the place as we've come to expect of him all the time now. Also went over the century mark. I think he's got 101 tackles now. Jehad is that guy in the middle that you can always count on.
Well, yeah, this was the best game Jehad played. This might have been the best game Jehad's played in his career here, and I think that it took a while to get him rolling this year too, which is unfortunate. But I think that he really played well. This last game I thought was the best game he's played at Washington State.
The mood in the locker room after the game. I mean, after a tough loss to Cal and losing whatever it was, 5 of 6, I think, prior to this one, the guys had to be, just excited and also relieved to just be back on the winning track.
Yeah, well, they might be relieved about something, but, part of the problem, I think, was we had a little too much relief going on. So I don't know about this relief stuff. We're not going to really let that they could be relieved. They can be relieved when they retire or something.
All right, we'll have much more with the coach here coming up on the Mike Leach Show live from Zeppo's. We'll look forward to the matchup on Saturday against Oregon State and also Senior Day as well. You're listening to Washington State football here on Learfield IMG College.
Show. Give us a call on the bookie call-in line at 866-COOG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back live here to Zeppos. It's the Mike Leach Show. I'm Derek Dice filling in for Matt Chasnow, or at least until he can get over here from Beasley Coliseum. The questions are pouring in from the studio audience here at Zeppos. And Coach Sophia, who's in the audience today, wants to know, what was your Halloween costume?
Well, I didn't have a Halloween. You're pretty much looking at something quite similar to my Halloween costume. And this is pretty much it. The biggest thing that we did to celebrate Halloween was instead of watching the film after practice, turned everybody loose because a bunch of them had young kids, and then they went and celebrated Halloween with their family, and we watched the film the next day. But yeah, that was Halloween.
Can you think of a time when you were a kid, maybe a particular costume that stood out to you that you remember?
Well, I've told this one before. Had a really cool vampire costume where my mom did the thing where she dyed the sheets, and then pretty soon after a little cutting stuff up and sewing some stuff together, I was a vampire, just like on TV.
Very nice, very nice. Another question from the audience: what do you like better, Gardner Minshew's mustache or Anthony Gordon's locks?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Each year has its own personality. And Gardner's still got the mustache and still playing, so that's not going anywhere. But for the time being, we'll stick with Anthony Gordon.
Okay. I think you probably got to put Liam Ryan's mullet somewhere in that category as well.
Well, his is artificial. He
bleached it, didn't he?
His would be kind of like the breast implant of facial hair and hair.
Very nice, very nice. All right, it was great to play in front of a packed stadium at Martin Stadium, sold-out crowd with Dad's Weekend. Now, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge this Saturday, Coach, because students are off for Thanksgiving break, and I know you and some of the coaches have, posted videos on Twitter kind of asking people to stay. It makes a big difference having a big crowd that's rowdy and loud and cheering for the Cougs.
Yeah, it's huge to have a big crowd, and we hope there's a big crowd there on Saturday, and that's the other thing about Martin Stadium. We're regarded as one of the loudest stadiums in the conference, and that has to do with the enthusiasm. Our student section's outstanding, and so we need as many of them as possible. And then, but it's that tight atmosphere, kind of like college football version of Wrigley Field or Fenway Park, and so we need as many as possible.
And I mean, really, do you need 9 days at home for Thanksgiving, right? What's staying one more day to cheer on your Cougs to try to become bowl eligible? All right, one reason of incentive for students to stay is the first 10,000 fans through the gate at Martin Stadium Saturday are going to pick up one of your bobbleheads that's also kind of like one of those Amazon Alexas that answers questions for you. I know you had a chance to check it out earlier this week in your media availability. What did you think of that thing?
Well, I guess I don't have much choice, so I love it. And then, so I think it's outstanding from that standpoint. And I think it's so exciting. Everybody should come to the game to get one. And then, anyway, a bunch of relatives are insisting they get one, so I'll have to pass a couple of them out.
Well, I'm sure we can make sure you get a few extra. Are you satisfied with the likeness that it looks enough like you? Because sometimes you see those bobbleheads, and they're terrible.
Well, I thought it was closer than the bobblehead.
Yeah.
I thought it was closer than the little man.
Very nice. And I know, let's talk about the seniors that are going to be honored. I think there's a group of about 14 of them, including Anthony Gordon, Aesop Winston, Desmond Patman, Fred Malagoa, Marcus Strong. Just talk about what this group of seniors, some of them have been here 5 years now, what they have mean and have meant to the program.
We have an outstanding group of seniors, which if you add it up and look at it, the most games in a 4-year stretch at any other time in the history of the program. And I think that, they've all had great careers. And then, of course, we're excited to, continue to, see them for a number of additional practices. And then, of course, after that, too, I have a number of people on my staff who played for me, and so, and there's, numerically there's more people than you can really stay in all their lives, but it's definitely exciting, and it's definitely something we look forward to. And then, of course, senior day is a great chance for the fans at home to say farewell to the seniors. But with regard to as a team, I guess we feel like we're going to be around each other for a while. So
for sure. And I think one thing that's really great that's happening on Saturday is taking some time to honor Tyler Helinski and his family here as well. And I'm sure it'll be a touching moment for your staff, the team, everybody in the stadium, and his family as well.
Well, we're excited to have him back and really appreciate that they're going to be here.
For sure. All right, some more questions from the studio audience here. When we win the next 2 games, what will you have for breakfast? Is there a game routine on breakfast?
Well, game day, I just eat what they put down there. But, on breakfast, if I'm not in a hurry, I have poached eggs, whole wheat toast, grits, and ham.
Did you pick up eating grits when you were in the South, like at Valdosta State or Kentucky, or did you eat that growing up? Because that seems like a Southern thing.
I actually picked it up in Los Angeles, and when I was going to law school, and I was curious about grits because you hear about them, and so grits is one of the greatest food items there is, which I recommend them to everybody. You can get them at the grocery store, and then if you're in a real hurry, which grits doesn't take very long to make anyway, but instant grits are not perfectly close, but they're pretty close to the real ones. So if you're in a hurry, you can even get instant grits, and instant grits are not quite, but almost as good as the regular ones. And the other thing I like about them is they unlike, say, pancakes or something, which I don't eat pancakes. Pancakes, you're hungry after an hour. Grits will stick with you till lunch.
A lot of people like to stir things into their grits. Do you take a plan, or do you put stuff in them?
I just put butter in it. Tastes like liquid popcorn.
There you go. Very nice. All right, a couple more questions from the studio audience. This one says, which quarterback looked the best tonight in Thursday night football, and which 2 defensive players looked the best in Thursday night football tonight, if you had to single anybody out?
Aaron Angeles looked really good in Thursday night football. The defensive front I thought looked really good. Maybe Lamont McDougal. And there were others too, though. The defensive front kind of took turns.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And a quarterback?
Aaron Angeles.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And then another question is, what's the player's schedule or routine on a Thursday, Friday, and then pregame Saturday?
Today they we met in practice, kind of the regular schedule. And then tomorrow we'll have a series of meetings. We'll have a walkthrough and a quick Pascal, and then go eat, go to the hotel, go to the movie, have a meeting that night, go to bed, and have some more meetings the next day, and get ready to beat Oregon State.
Watching the HBO 24/7 special, I did not realize that the movie the night before has kind of been a tradition. Is that something that you've always done here at WSU? Did you do that at Tech or other places before?
I've done it for a long, long time. In other places I've been, we've done it either sporadically but I think it's good to bring guys together that are going to go out there on the field and play together, get to know one another better. I think it kind of bonds the group instead of having a bunch of lethargic guys laying around a hotel room. When we've gotten feedback back from players, a lot of times they say the Friday before game ritual is something they really remember as far as being around their teammates and things like that, and going to the movie, the whole thing. So anyway, it's activity instead of just laying around either tense about the game or not really focused in.
All right, so what are we watching tomorrow?
Last week I watched Midway, and Midway's an outstanding movie. I think everybody should watch it. Anybody that's an American will appreciate it. There are some people running around this country nowadays masquerading as Americans, but I don't think they are. And I think Midway's an outstanding movie, and as good as the first Midway was, I think this Midway's even better. And this week I'll probably go see Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, that one's getting some great reviews for sure. All right, let's take a time out here on the Mike Leach Show, and we will look forward to the game against the Oregon State Beavers. Again, the 104th meeting between these two schools dating all the way back to 1903. This is Washington State football from Learfield IMG College.
At Bone.
To the Mike Leach Show. We are live here from Zeppo's. Matt Chaz and I actually just entered the building. We'll get him on headset here in just a minute. Before we go anywhere further, we are near the top of the hour, so let's pause 10 seconds for stations to identify themselves. Go ahead. All right, Coach, we've continued to get the questions pouring in from the studio audience here. I promise we'll get to Oregon State in just a little bit, but here's an interesting one. If the moon were made of barbecue spare ribs, would you eat it?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me. I would just get going as soon as I landed. Carrie says, thank you for the donation to the food bank. We really need it. So not really a question, but a comment, but awesome of you to contribute to the food bank.
Oh, yeah. Well, happy eating.
Especially here with Thanksgiving close upon us. And another one, if you're walking in Key West with a Cougar hat on and someone yells, "Go Cougs," what do you do or say?
I usually say go Cougs or wave at them, and there's quite a lot that do. You'd be amazed how far and wide the Cougs travel. I mean, the Cougs are everywhere, and I definitely run into a lot in Key West, a lot of Cougs. And some are scattered around the country, and some found their way all the way down there from Washington.
Very nice. All right, let's talk about this matchup on Saturday with the Oregon State Beavers. 5-5 on the season, same record as you. They've actually won 3 of their last 4. They won at Cal, at Arizona, lost at home to UW, and then beat Arizona State 35-34 on a bit of a controversial ending on Saturday. Under Jonathan Smith, Coach, this team is showing a lot of improvement this year.
Yeah, I think they've gotten better, and you could see it taking shape last year, and they're going to be a good challenge for us for sure. And we've got to play our best game in order to beat these guys.
In last year's game down in Corvallis, it seems like they had a never-ending bag of tricks. It was one trick play after another, and it didn't matter if it was on offense or special teams or what have you. Do you expect more trick plays from the Beavs again this Saturday?
I think we'll get some trick plays. I don't know that it'll be that much. When we played them, I think we were their first conference game. And
that's right. It was early.
So at that point, it's easier to put in a bunch of trick plays. At this point, after they've played as many teams as they have and as many as we have, it's tough to install that much in 1 week. And then also some of those cats are out of the bag because they fought like crazy to win a bunch of other games as well. So I think there'll be trick plays, yeah, because I think that's part of their deal. But I think it'll be less than we saw last time.
Isaiah Hodgins has really been the star of the Beaver offense. 73 catches, 1,021 yards, and 13 touchdowns, which leads the conference. At one time, Isaiah was a WSU verbal commit. What do you remember about this kid coming out of high school, being on campus, and nearly joining the Cougs?
Great kid, really talented player, and we thought he was good, and he's everything that I thought he would be.
Yeah, and a guy you've got to be leery of on defense.
Well, they try to get the ball to him as much as they can, and he's definitely a very good player.
Yeah, he's got 73 catches. The next most for Oregon State is 35, so more than twice the number of catches as their second leading receiver. They also have kind of a two-headed running back in Artavis Pierce and Jamar Jefferson, who is the sophomore that scored 4 touchdowns against the Cougs last year. Those two have combined for nearly 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, and both are a little bit different in their style.
Well, they play a lot of games with their formations, their shifts, their motions, and dress a lot of things up, and then work to get those guys the football.
All right, and then on the defensive side, they've really got a breakout player on the defensive line, Kamaka Rasheed. He's a 6'4", 236-pound junior outside linebacker. Through 10 games, he's got 60 tackles, 22.5 tackles for loss. I thought that was a misprint at first, and 14 sacks. He's really been kind of a one-man wrecking ball for the Beavers up front.
Yeah, good player, very quick off the ball. The biggest thing, I think, he plays hard, he's quick off the ball, uses his hands well.
And I think it seems like they've got 80 tackles for loss, 29 sacks as a team. They seem to take chances, maybe. Is that fair to say, a little more on defense to try to get pressure on the opposing quarterback?
They blitz more than the other teams we've played. They blitz probably 45% of the time.
All right. We will continue to talk about the matchup with the Beavers. And again, we'll get Matt Chasnow on a headset here as well. You're listening to the Mike Leach Show on Washington State football from Learfield IMG College.
If a buried natural gas
Welcome back to the show. Time now to look ahead at this week's game with the Coors Light Opponent Preview. Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
All right, back here live at Zeppo's. Great to be with you as it is the Coach Show. And, of course, Dice Man, thanks for taking over. Coach, I want to ask you, I know it's the opponent preview. We just talked about the Beavers previously as I was driving in. Very pertinent. You were talking about grits. And first of all, it's very strange to listen to the show and not be here with everybody. That was an odd feeling. But what's the difference between cream of wheat and grits?
Oh man, you just opened a whole.
Well, I'm not a cream of wheat guy. I mean, it's edible, but it's kind of slimy tasting. It's not as filling, and there's a texture to grits, which is I think is part of the fulfilling part of it, and cream of wheat's kind of a sweeter tasting deal. You can adjust that in any direction. Grits are far better. I mean, grits are way better. It's not even close.
Yeah. Cream of wheat's terrible. Let's be honest.
What is it? What is the difference? What's the grain? I don't even know.
Well, cream of wheat is, what do you think? You guessed it. It's wheat.
Wheat, right?
Okay, and then grits is hominy. Like think of corn nuts before they dried them all up, and then they get them fresh off the thing, and then grind them up, and off you go. So it's corn nuts. It's corn nuts before they've dried them.
Got it. I didn't know that.
Should we stick with the food questions then? Since
while we're on it.
Cindy in the audience here wants to know: are you a light turkey meat or dark guy, Coach?
Light, always light.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite.
You're a dark
meat guy. Yeah.
I feel like you had a really strong...
My daughter's a dark meat person.
Really?
Yeah.
When did she know? Was that like... is that nature?
I mean, as a kid, when she was a kid. I mean, she'd always want thighs, thighs.
That's me, thighs and legs.
Always?
Yeah.
Always.
She likes legs, too. Sometimes people get to the legs. I'll eat the crispy part of the legs, but...
I do love the huge turkey legs at the fair. Those are awesome. Those are great.
Yeah, and you can pretend you're Henry VIII and everything.
Yeah, exactly. You got another one here?
Yeah. How many kids do you have, Coach, and will they be here for Thanksgiving weekend?
4 kids, 2 will be here. The youngest ones will be here. And then... Janine's in Atlanta with, I have 4 kids. Janine's in Atlanta with 4 kids, her and her husband, and then Kim and her husband are in Oklahoma City.
Do they come here? Do they come to Zeppo's? Like here? Or will they be in Seattle?
They have. I mean, they have at times. It kind of depends what's going on, because during Thanksgiving, when they got the family there, Sharon kind of herds that, and then I go to practice and meetings, and I come home and I'm pleasantly surprised generally what's going on there, and then I just step in late there,
Very nice.
Big plans coming up for short week road game against the Huskies there, of course, but this Beaver game, this is the opponent preview. So I heard you guys talking about Kamaka Rasheed, and he's a good one, and he kind of pops off on film from the linebacker spot. A lot of tackles for loss.
Yeah, quick off the ball, good with his hands.
He's having an historical year statistically. He's the 22.5 tackles. He leads the country in sacks with 14, but Ron Rivera for Cal, the current head coach for the Panthers, holds that record for tackles for loss. I think right now he's at like 19. With a few games left, he's at like 19th best ever in pack play. He's having a really good year, big time.
Yeah, good player.
Yeah. And really a breakout season. I mean, if you look back, he kind of came out of nowhere to put up the numbers he's been doing this season. All right, let's take another timeout, and we'll be back with more with Coach. You're listening to Washington State Football here on Learfield IMG College.
Hey, I'm Kirk Herbstreit. Give us a call on the bookie call-in line at 866-COOP-TALK, 1-866-268-4825. Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
All right, back here live at Zeppo's. It is that time of the week. Great to be joined, and much thanks to Derek Dice for helping out, bridging the gap here as we have Coach for this final segment. You got a question in your hand there. We were talking turkey or talking food before.
Another Thanksgiving-related one. What is your favorite cranberry dish, Coach? Any special ingredients to it?
Just cranberry sauce or cranberry juice.
Straight up.
But what about
sometimes
the can of? How do you feel about when you take the can out and it sucks out
outside of the fact that looks disgusting, it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, but it even still has the mold.
Yeah, you gotta chop it up so it doesn't have the shape of a can. But I mean, if we're honest, that actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah. What do you think?
I love it. You can do the cranberry sauce with cream cheese on your turkey sandwiches when you do the leftovers.
That's one thing. You talked about the candy corn and all that stuff, but that's something you wonder why they don't have a little more often during the year.
Yeah, 100%. Cranberry sauce should be year round. We're just going rapid fire here. These are all over the map. How do you feel? Do you know Lovie Smith?
Yeah, great guy.
And so you're familiar a little bit, at least. The question here is, how do you feel about Lovie Smith turning Illinois around? They're having a very good season. He has a fantastic beard. He is an all-time beard on that guy.
Lovie Smith is a great guy and a lot of fun to hang out with.
Yeah, that's a lot. When did you guys cross paths?
I first met Lovie Smith when I was coaching at Iowa Wesleyan College way back when, and I can't remember where Lovie was, but I don't know. We just our paths intersect from time to time.
Oh, that's cool.
It's been a long time since somebody turned around the Illini. So best of luck to him trying to do that.
Juice Williams, right? Ron Zook, I think. Yeah.
All right, this is kind of a leading question, Coach. Who is your celebrity crush, and is it Gardner Minshew?
Well, Gardner's a little too close to home. It's like having a crush on your brother. Well. When I was a kid, it was Bart Starr.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Well, it's a great one.
Well, and then when I was a coach, it was Billy Martin.
Yeah. What about I think was the gist of the question more kind of Hollywood actors, or was it I guess doesn't really
do we want to clarify whoever brought this one up?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know who that came from.
John Wayne, but that's like picking deity. When you get in the discussion of
right, that's kind of all time. This question here, I'm working through a little handwriting issue, but I think I'll get it. You said one time the group on the offensive line were the smartest on the team. Did you mean grade-wise or football IQ, or are those directly related?
Usually both.
Kind of go together. I think that I've heard you reference how academic when someone is academically engaged, they're also, it's not a switch that you flip on and off. Generally, it goes hand in hand. When you're pretty good in school, you work harder at everything you do. The way you do anything is the way you do everything.
I've had far better luck with higher academic guys than lower ones. I mean, and some guys, don't necessarily have great grades, but they're working at it as hard as they can. Somebody that's working at their academics as hard as they can, even if it's like a 2.4 or something like that. Somebody that's motivated and driven and doing the best in one thing, often's doing the best they can in the other.
Trying their hardest. I mean, in some instances also, I think it's amazing, aside from the time commitment and all that stuff, Cosmas Quete was in Africa not that long ago, and he's trying to figure. He was in Phoenix for prep football for a year. He's this great-looking D lineman. What do you think about Cosmas, how he's been on the field and how you've dealt with him off the field?
Does a good job. He's a really explosive guy. He's going to be a really good player here.
Yeah, he and the freshmen. Some of the freshman defenders, Cosmas comes to mind, and Travion Brown. You've got a freshman defensive lineman, and then a freshman kind of linebacker nickel hybrid. He's been a really good-looking player too, hasn't he?
Yeah. Travion's a very sharp guy, very engaged. Travion, if the season went much longer, Travion would have a chance to be one of the best players on the entire dig.
Coach, mentioning Cosmas Quete, and I think my station has been working on a story about him. It might even be airing tonight. I'm not sure. But if you're a kid who grew up in a refugee camp in Africa and then had to relocate because your refugee camp was trampled by rhinoceroses, I mean, trying to get around in college football is not as big of a deal, right? I mean, he's been through some things life-wise that can make him more able to adapt.
Yeah, that's why they call him Rhino Hunter.
Do that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Hey, thanks, Derek.
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. Great to see everybody. Sorry I was a little bit late. It was over in Beasley. Hey, Jared Gruber, Jerry Kylo, thank you, Coach. Thanks for the time, as always. We'll be on live. It'll be Derek and Jedediah. What time is kick on Saturday?
Kicks at 6.
Kicks at 6, 4 o'clock
tailgate
airtime. Yeah, I was in another place in my mind. Hey, go Cougs. Thanks to Jake back in the studios. Go Cougs.